The sun was low in the sky, casting a golden haze across the quiet hills of Oak Ridge Cemetery. The stillness of the place was pierced only by the rustling of wind through brittle autumn leaves. Michael Langford stepped slowly out of his black Bentley, his leather shoes crunching softly against the gravel path. The moment he closed the car door, the silence pressed in around him like a weight. He hadn't been here in over a decade, not since the funeral he didn't attend. He told himself he was too busy. The meetings, the investors, the acquisitions, it was all a convenient excuse. In truth, Michael Langford was terrified, not of death, not even of grief, but of what he might feel if he let himself remember. Because if he remembered, he might never be able to forget again. He adjusted the cuff of his tailored coat and walked with practiced confidence toward the far side of the cemetery. A man who had once stood in front of CEOs and global leaders without flinching now felt his chest tighten with every step. The past had claws, and today it was reaching for him. There it was, her grave. Emma Carlyle. The name hit him like a whisper wrapped in thunder. He had once said her name with reverence, with hope. Now it sat carved in stone, a monument to everything they never got to finish. He stood still, unsure if he should kneel, speak, or walk away. The wind danced around him, lifting a few strands of his dark hair and brushing against his face like a fading memory. He slid one hand into his coat pocket, the other hanging helplessly by his side. His fingers trembled slightly. He remembered her laughter first, always too loud for quiet restaurants, always the kind of laugh that turned heads and softened hearts. She used to say the world was too sad to be quiet in it. He remembered how she used to throw her shoes off at the end of a long day and dance barefoot in the kitchen while spaghetti boiled on the stove. He remembered how she could read him when he didn't even know what he was feeling himself. She had been the chaos to his structure, the storm to his stillness. And when she left, suddenly, without warning, it was as if someone had taken the air out of his lungs and told him to keep walking. Now, here he was, 13 years later, a millionaire many times over, a titan of industry, standing in front of a patch of grass and marble, wondering why all his success felt so painfully empty. He didn't bring flowers. Emma hated cut flowers. Why would I want a dead plant to honor my living soul? She used to joke. He smiled, then frowned, then took a shaky breath. I made it, he finally whispered, his voice hoarse. The company, the goals, all of it. But it doesn't mean anything without you. There was no reply, of course, only the rustling leaves and the distant hum of the city he had helped shape. He turned to leave, a part of him wanting to run. But then he heard it, a soft sound, a sniffle, then another, a small voice, then two. He froze, turning his head toward a tall tree just a few yards away. Beneath it, huddled together on a worn bench, were two little girls. Their clothes were dusty, not quite clean. Their small backpacks sat on the ground beside them. One of them had a tear-streaked face and wide, frightened eyes. The other clutched a tattered stuffed rabbit to her chest like a lifeline. They noticed him, too. The older one, maybe 8 years old, stood up quickly, shielding the younger one with a protective stance that seemed far too mature for her age. Sorry, she said quickly, wiping her face. We didn't mean to bother you. Michael blinked. You're not, he said after a pause, his voice softer now. Are you okay? The little girl hesitated. We're just waiting. That's all. For who? She bit her lip. Mom said she'd be back soon. Michael looked around, confusion settling over him like fog. Is your mom here? Somewhere in the cemetery. The younger girl sniffled, rubbing her eyes. She went to find something. She said to wait here. Michael glanced at his watch. It was nearly sunset. Do you know how long she's been gone? He asked gently. The older girl glanced down, unsure. A long time, I think. There was something about the way she said it. A quiet resignation, a practiced patience that didn't belong in a child's voice. Michael crouched down slowly, keeping his distance so he wouldn't scare them. "What's your name?" he asked. "I'm Lily," the older girl replied. "This is my sister, Ava." "Hi, Lily." "Hi, Ava. I'm Michael." He looked at the younger one. "That's a brave rabbit you've got there." Ava gave the smallest nod and hugged it tighter. Michael hesitated, then pulled out his phone. "Would it be okay if I called someone? Maybe to help find your mom?" "No," Lily said quickly, eyes wide. "She said not to talk to anyone. She said if someone finds us, they'll take us away again." Michael's heart sank. Again. Lily looked down. "We used to live with other people, but they were mean. So Mom came and got us. She said we'd stay together this time." He felt his breath catch. This wasn't just an unfortunate mix-up. This was something deeper, something broken. Michael looked back toward Emma's grave, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. He felt purpose, a strange, burning sense of connection. He turned back to the girls, his voice steady. "How about this?" he said softly. "I'll wait here with you until your mom comes back. That way, you're not alone." Lily hesitated. Ava nodded first, curling up tighter on the bench. Then Lily slowly sat back down beside her. The wind picked up, and Michael took off his coat, laying it gently around Ava's shoulders. She smiled, just a little. He sat down on the edge of the bench, his eyes watching the fading horizon. He didn't know yet how this moment would change everything. That these two girls, fragile and fierce, would unravel the very core of the life he thought he had figured out. He didn't know that waiting with them would become a turning point, a reckoning with the man he used to be, and the man he had yet to become. But in that moment, he just knew one thing. He wasn't walking away. Not this time. Not again. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the cemetery. The sky was painted in strokes of dusky purple and burnt orange, and a quiet chill had begun to settle in the air. Michael remained on the bench with the two girls, his expensive coat now draped around both of them. They sat in silence, save for the occasional shiver from Ava and the constant, unconscious tapping of Lily's fingers against her knee. She was nervous. Michael could see it in her posture, in the way she kept glancing toward the cemetery gates. He wanted to ask more questions, but every time he opened his mouth, something stopped him. These girls didn't need to be interrogated. They needed to feel safe. And for the first time in a long while, Michael didn't feel like a CEO with deadlines and strategies and an empire to maintain. He just felt like a man sitting next to two scared little girls in the fading light of evening. "Are you hungry?" he asked finally, his voice calm and quiet. Ava nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly. Lily hesitated before answering, as if unsure whether admitting a need would be considered weakness. Then she whispered, "A little." Michael nodded and stood slowly. "I'm going to get something from my car." "Okay. I'll be right back." He walked quickly down the path to his Bentley, unlocking it and pulling out the emergency kit from the trunk. Inside, he found a couple of protein bars, 2 bottled waters, and a small fleece blanket. Not much, but it was something. He looked at the sleek, polished vehicle and shook his head. For all the money he had, all the luxuries he'd accumulated, he'd never once prepared for something like this. No assistant, no business deal, no stock merger could have readied him for this moment. He returned to the bench and offered the protein bars and waters. Ava took hers eagerly, tearing it open with both hands. Lily took hers slowly, eyeing him cautiously before finally accepting. They ate in silence. The sky grew darker. Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket, probably a missed call or email from his assistant. But he didn't look at it. Not now. After a while, Lily broke the silence. "Are you rich?" she asked, her tone curious, not accusing. Michael blinked. "Why do you ask?" She pointed to his car, then glanced down at the coat wrapped around her. "Your stuff looks expensive," He gave a small smile. Yes, I suppose I am. She nodded slowly. You don't act like it. Michael raised an eyebrow. And how do rich people act? Too busy, she said matter-of-factly. Too important to sit on cold benches. That one hit deeper than he expected. It was a quiet truth, one he couldn't deny. He had spent most of his adult life being too busy. Too busy for family, too busy for love, too busy for goodbyes. And now, in a twist of fate, the first meaningful conversation he'd had in years was with a child who could barely reach the foot pedals of his car. I used to be like that, he admitted after a moment. Too busy, too important. I thought if I worked hard enough, made enough money, I could fix everything. Did it work? Lily asked. Michael looked away. Not really. There was another pause. Ava had finished her bar and was now fast asleep, her head resting in Lily's lap. Lily gently smoothed her sister's hair, her fingers delicate and precise, as if she'd done this 1,000 times before. How old are you, Lily? 8, she said. You take care of your sister. She nodded. Always? Since I can remember. Michael's throat tightened. There was strength in that little voice, but also a weariness that no child should carry. He wanted to know more. Needed to know more. But he didn't want to break the fragile trust that was slowly forming between them. Do you remember where you were staying before your mom brought you here? Lily looked up, unsure whether to answer. Michael added gently, You're not in trouble. I just want to help. We stayed in a shelter, she said finally. Before that, with a lady named Miss Sharon. But Mom didn't like her. Said she was trying to keep us apart. So we left. Michael nodded slowly. This wasn't just a single bad night. This was a life teetering on the edge, a family that had slipped through the cracks. The stars had started to appear now, tiny pinpricks of light scattered across the sky. Michael checked the time. Nearly 8:00 p.m., still no sign of their mother. I think we should go somewhere warmer, he said carefully. Maybe a hotel for the night. I can get you both your own room, something to eat, clean clothes. Lily's eyes widened. You want to take us? No, Michael said quickly, not wanting to alarm her. I just want to help you stay safe. We can go together. You'll stay with me, and I'll make sure you're both okay. If your mom comes back here, we'll leave a note for her. I'll come back and check tomorrow morning, too. Lily hesitated. Ava stirred in her lap. I don't want to get taken away again, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Michael crouched down so they were eye level again. No one's taking you anywhere. Not unless it's safe. I promise. And I'll be with you every step of the way. She looked into his eyes for a long time, as if trying to find a lie there. Then slowly she nodded. Okay. Michael exhaled, feeling a wave of something unfamiliar settle over him. Relief, maybe, or the beginning of responsibility. He picked Ava up gently, her tiny arms curling around his neck. Lily walked beside him as they made their way to the car. He placed Ava carefully in the back seat, buckled her in, then opened the front passenger door for Lily. Once they were settled, he climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. The warmth from the heater was immediate and welcome. As they drove through the winding roads out of the cemetery and into the city lights, Lily looked out the window, silent but awake. Michael glanced at her, wondering what she was thinking. Michael, she said suddenly. Yes. Did you know the lady whose grave you were at? He hesitated. Yes, a long time ago. Did you love her? A pause. Yes, he said softly. Very much. Did she love you back? I think so, he whispered, his grip on the steering wheel tightening. But I didn't know how to show it. Not when it mattered most. Lily nodded slowly, then turned back to the window. Michael didn't speak again. The streets of the city passed by, lit with neon signs and late-night traffic. But inside the car, there was a quiet sort of peace. He didn't know where this night would lead, or how deep this story would go. But he knew, without question, that he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel lost. He felt found. The hotel lobby was warm and polished, filled with the quiet hum of soft jazz music and the low murmur of guests checking in or sipping late-night coffee. Michael walked in carrying Ava, who was still asleep against his shoulder, and Lily followed close behind, clutching her small backpack with both hands. Her wide eyes scanned the towering chandeliers and marble floors, taking in a world she clearly didn't belong to, yet didn't seem afraid of. Not anymore. The front desk manager recognized Michael instantly. He was, after all, one of the hotel's wealthiest clients and a regular patron when hosting international business partners. But tonight, the look he received wasn't one of prestige. It was surprise, curiosity. The billionaire CEO didn't usually show up after hours in a worn coat with two scruffy little girls by his side. "Mr. Langford, good evening," the manager greeted cautiously. "I need a suite," Michael said, his tone firm but calm. "2 bedrooms, something quiet, private. No press. No questions." "Of course, sir. Right away." Michael nodded and shifted Ava's weight in his arms, waiting patiently as the key cards were prepared. When the manager returned, Michael took the keys without another word and led the girls to the elevator. As the doors slid closed, he caught Lily's reflection in the mirrored panel. She was still watching everything, every button press, every flicker of light. She was memorizing details, not out of wonder, but habit, a survival skill. They reached the suite on the 32nd floor. It was quiet, modern, elegant, filled with soft lighting and plush furniture that smelled faintly of eucalyptus and luxury. Michael laid Ava down on one of the beds, pulling the blanket up gently over her small form. She didn't stir. Lily stood at the threshold of the room, unsure whether to sit, stand, or run. "You don't have to be afraid," Michael said gently. "This place is yours for the night. Both of you. No one's going to bother you here." She nodded once, then stepped cautiously inside. Michael walked to the other side of the suite, picked up the room service phone, and ordered grilled cheese sandwiches, fruit, warm milk, and extra towels. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed his assistant. It rang once. "Mr. Langford, is everything okay? I need you to cancel my meetings for the next 3 days. Push the investor summit. Reschedule the Dubai call." There was a pause on the line. "Sir, everything." "Yes, everything. I'll be in touch when I'm ready to return." "Understood." He hung up and leaned against the kitchen counter, exhaling slowly. What was he doing? The old Michael would have never stopped his empire for 2 strangers. But that man had spent the last decade achieving everything he'd ever wanted, only to find it meant nothing without someone to share it with. He didn't even realize Lily had crept into the room until she spoke. "You don't seem like someone who changes plans." Michael looked up, surprised. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" She shrugged. "Depends why you're doing it." He smiled faintly. "I guess I'm trying to do something that matters." Lily sat on one of the stools at the counter, her small legs swinging above the floor. "You already have everything. Why do you care about us?" Michael considered the question. "Because sometimes the things that matter the most aren't things." She was quiet for a while, then asked, "Did something happen to you before you found us?" He glanced toward the darkened window, where the city lights twinkled like stars. "Someone I cared about. Someone I loved. She passed away. I came to say goodbye. That's when I found you too." "Emma," Lily said. Michael's eyebrows lifted. "How did you know her name?" "You were talking at the grave. I heard you say her name." He nodded slowly, impressed. She noticed everything. "Did you hurt her?" she asked suddenly. The question cut through him like a knife. "I think I did," he said softly. "Not in the way you might think, but I hurt her by leaving things unsaid, by being too focused on what I wanted and not enough on what she needed. Lily's voice was small. Did she leave you too? Yes. Did it break your heart? Michael met her gaze. It did. She looked down at her hands. Our dad broke Mum's heart. Then he left. She cried for a long time, but she never let us see it for long. I'm sorry, Michael said, and meant it. Sometimes, Lily said quietly, I wonder if grown-ups ever really know what they're doing. Michael gave a soft laugh. Honestly, most of the time, we don't. We're just trying to do better than we did yesterday. Room service arrived, and Lily's eyes widened at the silver trays and steaming plates. Michael helped her set it up on the coffee table. They ate quietly, the atmosphere strange but comforting. Michael didn't press her with questions. He let the silence do the talking. It seemed to be what she needed. Later, when Ava was still asleep and Lily had finished eating, Michael showed her the second bedroom. Do you want to stay in here or with your sister? With Ava, she said. He nodded. Okay. I'll be right in the other room if you need anything. You can knock any time. She stood in the doorway, watching him for a second. Thank you for not making us feel like a problem. Michael's throat tightened. You're not a problem, Lily. You're a miracle. She didn't smile, but her eyes softened, and then she closed the door behind her. That night, Michael lay awake in his own bed, staring at the ceiling. Sleep refused to come. His mind was flooded with thoughts about Emma, about the girls, about the countless decisions that had brought him here. He thought about the man he had been. Cold, calculated, obsessed with growth. A man who had spent his life building towers, but had never really built a home. And now, in a twist of fate, he had stumbled upon something so fragile, so real, it shook the very foundation of who he was. The next morning, before the sun rose, he made a decision. He would find their mother. Not because he had to, not out of obligation, but because something inside him had shifted. Maybe it was Emma. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was just time to stop running from the things that mattered. But he would find her. And if he couldn't, he would make sure those two little girls never had to feel abandoned again. Not on his watch. Not ever. The morning light spilled through the large windows, casting golden streaks across the suite's polished floor. The city below was already stirring. Cars humming down busy streets, coffee shops opening their doors, business people moving through their routines. But inside the quiet hotel room on the 32nd floor, a different kind of world existed, one where time seemed to pause. Michael sat at the dining table, sipping black coffee, his eyes fixed on the screen of his laptop. But his mind wasn't on the dozens of emails waiting to be answered or the financial reports blinking in front of him. It was on Ava and Lily, still asleep in the next room. He hadn't slept much, but strangely, he didn't feel tired. There was a sharpness to his thoughts now, like something had finally clicked into place. All the noise of his corporate life had been replaced by a single, quiet clarity. He had to find their mother. Not just for the girls, but for himself. Because deep down, he knew this wasn't coincidence. It was something else, something bigger than him. His thoughts drifted again to Emma. He could still see her face the last time they'd spoken. Strong-willed, hurt, her eyes filled with something she never said out loud. He had told himself for years that she left because she didn't love him anymore. But now, with every passing hour, that version of the story felt thinner. There had been something more, something unsaid. He closed the laptop and stood, stretching the stiffness out of his shoulders. He walked toward the girl's room and paused at the door. It was slightly ajar. Peeking in, he saw Lily awake, sitting cross-legged on the bed beside Ava, who was still curled up under the covers. Lily was reading a worn, dog-eared book by the light of the window, some kind of children's fantasy novel. Her lips moved slightly as she read, her face calm, almost content. He knocked softly on the doorframe. Morning. Lily looked up, blinking as she adjusted to the real world again. Hi. How'd you sleep? Okay. Ava didn't wake up once. That's a good sign. Michael smiled. She's got you looking out for her. That's a better sign. Lily gave a small shrug. She was still guarded, but there was a warmth now, a quiet trust that hadn't been there the day before. Are you hungry? She nodded. Let's get breakfast downstairs. I know a place that makes pancakes as big as your head. She cracked the smallest smile. Really? Really? But only if you help me figure out where your mom might be. The smile faded. She looked down, thinking. I don't know where she is. She said she had a meeting, but she didn't tell me where. Just that she'd come back. Michael sat down beside her, not pushing. Has she done that before? Left you like this? Sometimes, but not for this long. Do you remember any friends she had? Anyone she might have trusted? Lily shook her head. She didn't talk to many people. She said it was safer that way. Michael leaned back. That matched the pattern of someone on the run, someone avoiding systems, people, questions. But from what? A bad relationship, the law, or just fear? Ava stirred and sat up, rubbing her eyes. Hey, sleepyhead, Lily said softly. Ava blinked at the light. Is Mommy here? Michael's heart clenched. Not yet, Lily said quickly. But we're safe. Ava nodded and leaned into her sister. By the time they made it to the hotel restaurant, the girls were wide-eyed at the selection of fruit, pastries, and the hot plates stacked with eggs and waffles. Michael let them take what they wanted. He barely ate himself. His focus was elsewhere. After breakfast, he made a few calls. He contacted a private investigator he had used years ago for business-related matters. Discreet, thorough, expensive, but this wasn't about cost. He gave her all the information he had, the girls' first names, their mother's first name, Sophia, the fact that they had recently been in a shelter and possibly stayed with a woman named Sharon. I want to find her, he said firmly. No press, no alerts, just the truth. The PI agreed to get started right away. Michael hung up and turned back to the girls, who were now sitting in the lounge area, drawing on napkins with hotel pens. It felt surreal, this moment, this shift in his life that had happened so quickly, so quietly, without fanfare or warning. And yet it felt inevitable, as though he had been walking toward this moment his entire life without even realizing it. Later that afternoon, Michael took the girls shopping. Not in the over-the-top designer way he might have once done to impress a business partner or outdo a competitor, but thoughtfully. They bought coats, shoes, new socks. Ava picked out a purple hoodie with sparkles. Lily chose plain jeans and a navy blue jacket. He let them choose their own things, never pushing. At one point, Lily stood in front of a mirror, turning slightly in her new coat. You think Mom's okay? She asked, almost to herself. Michael knelt down so they were eye to eye. I think we're going to find her. But no matter what happens, I won't let anything bad happen to you or your sister. You hear me? She nodded, her eyes welling, but she blinked the tears back. Okay. That night, back at the hotel, Michael received a call from the PI. I tracked down the shelter they were at, she said. It checks out. Your girl, Sophia, left 3 days ago. No forwarding info, but she made a call from a payphone nearby. Can you trace it? Already did. She called a woman named Sharon McKinney. I found an address. She lives about 45 minutes outside the city. Michael's heart jumped. Send me everything. She did. Michael hung up and stared at the map on his phone. A small town. A residential neighborhood. A chance. The girls were already asleep when he walked in, the room quiet and warm. He sat in the chair beside their bed, looking at them. Two innocent souls caught in the tides of adult choices, choices they never got to make. He wasn't sure what he would find at Sharon's. He didn't know what Sophia would say, or whether she'd even want him involved. But he knew this. He wasn't walking away. He couldn't, because something inside him had changed, not because he had money, not because it looked good on paper, but because when he had looked at Lily's eyes and Ava's trembling hand holding his coat, he'd seen himself, and maybe, just maybe, this was his second chance. Not to fix the past, but to build something better from the broken pieces. The next morning was still cloaked in fog when Michael eased his black SUV onto the quiet stretch of road leading into the small town where Sharon McKinney lived. The world around him looked different here. Slower, simpler, untouched by the high-rises and flashing lights that had once defined his reality. Here, life didn't rush. It breathed. It waited. Lily sat beside him in the passenger seat, her seatbelt drawn tight across her chest. Ava was asleep in the back, her head leaning against the window, soft breath fogging up the glass. Michael had offered to leave them with a hotel nanny, but Lily had shaken her head immediately. "She might not talk to you," she'd said, "but she might talk to me." He'd agreed. Now, as the GPS announced the upcoming turn, Michael's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He wasn't sure what he expected. Gratitude? Anger? Relief? He wasn't even certain if Sophia would be there, but this was the closest they'd come to answers. They turned onto a quiet residential street lined with modest houses, weather-worn porches, bicycles on lawns, wind chimes dancing in the breeze, a place that smelled of earth and memory. Michael parked the car in front of a small beige house with peeling shutters and a crooked mailbox. The number matched, 47 Birch Lane. Lily looked at the house for a long time. Then she opened the door and stepped out. He followed her up the walk. Before they even knocked, the door creaked open. A woman in her late 50s stood in the doorway, wearing a faded cardigan and holding a steaming mug of tea. Her gray hair was pulled back in a bun, her eyes sharp behind thick glasses. "You're not exactly who I expected," she said, eyeing Michael. "We're looking for Sophia," Michael said, his voice calm but direct. "You're Sharon, right?" The woman's gaze flicked to Lily, then softened. "Lily, sweetheart." Lily nodded. "Hi, Miss Sharon." Michael caught the shift. How Lily's posture changed, just slightly. Familiarity. Safety. Sharon opened the door wider. "You'd better come in." Inside, the house was small but cozy. Framed photos lined the walls. Family, holidays, a wedding long past. A small dog barked somewhere in another room, then went quiet. Sharon motioned to the couch. "She's not here," she said, sitting across from them. "Sophia. She stayed for a night. She was scared. Tired. She didn't tell me much, just that she had to leave the girls behind to keep them safe." Michael felt a hollow drop in his chest. Safe from what? Sharon hesitated, then looked at Lily. "Why don't you and Ava go play in the backyard for a bit? There are still some of your toys in the shed." Lily stood. "Come on, Ava," she said softly. Once the girls were outside, Sharon leaned forward. "I don't know all the details," she said, "but she mentioned someone was looking for her. Someone dangerous. An old boyfriend. Not the girl's father. He's long gone. Someone else. She didn't even give me a name." Michael's mind raced. "And she didn't say where she was going." "She said she had to disappear. Told me not to tell anyone. But I didn't expect the girls to end up alone. She promised she'd come back for them." "She didn't," Michael said flatly. "I figured that out." Sharon took a sip of her tea. She was trying to protect them. But I don't think she realized how much danger she put them in by leaving them like that. Michael nodded. "I want to help. I've been taking care of them. But they need their mother." Lily's scared, but holding it together. Ava's still asking for her every morning. Sharon looked at him long and hard. "You care about those girls." "I do." "Why?" Michael didn't hesitate. "Because they reminded me of someone I lost. Someone I failed. I don't want to fail again." Sharon seemed to weigh that. "I believe you. But if you're serious about helping, you need to know this. Sophia doesn't trust easily. And if she sees someone from her old life, someone successful, powerful, connected, She might run again. Michael's voice was steady. Then I won't be the one to find her. Sharon raised an eyebrow. Then who will? He glanced out the window, where Lily and Ava were crouched by a flower bed, giggling over something hidden in the dirt. Her daughters, he said. They're her anchor. Her truth. She won't run from them. Sharon nodded slowly. I might have something. She left behind a small box, said to give it to the girls if something happened to her. I never opened it. She left the room and returned a minute later with a small battered tin box. Michael took it gently. It was lighter than he expected. Inside, there was a faded photograph of the three of them, Sophia, Lily, and baby Ava, sitting on a swing set in some sunlit park. Sophia looked tired but happy. There was also a note, folded in half, with Lily's name on it in soft handwriting. Michael handed it to her when she came back inside. Lily opened it slowly. Her lips moved silently as she read. Her face didn't change much, just a quiet stillness, like she was absorbing every word. When she was done, she looked up at Michael. She's in Bellington. That's what it says. It's a small town. She said if anything ever happened, I should remember the place we went to see the fireflies. Do you remember it? He asked. Lily nodded. I do. Sharon sighed. It's 2 hours north, near the state forest. Michael stood. Then we're going there. Sharon hesitated. If you find her, tell her I kept my promise, that I protected her girls the best I could. I will. As they drove north that afternoon, the sun broke through the clouds. The road was lined with pines and birch trees, their bare branches reaching toward the pale sky. The hum of the car and the soft breathing of the girls in the back seat made everything feel strangely peaceful. Michael didn't know what Bellington would hold, whether Sophia would be there, whether she'd run, whether she'd cry. But he knew this much. He was all in now. This wasn't about guilt anymore, or duty, or even redemption. This was about family, and the kind of love that doesn't announce itself with grand gestures or perfect timing, but with the quiet, unwavering decision to stay, no matter what. The sky was a dusky gold when they finally reached the outskirts of Bellington. It was one of those rare towns that still felt like it belonged to another time. Nestled between vast stretches of forest and quiet lakes, its main street lined with local diners, antique shops, and a single blinking traffic light that looked like it hadn't been replaced in decades. The air smelled of pine and wood smoke, and something else, something peaceful. Michael slowed the SUV as they entered town, letting Lily guide him from the back seat. Her voice was steady, but beneath it was a quiet urgency, like she was clinging to hope but bracing for disappointment. There's a park, she said softly, by the creek. That's where we saw the fireflies. Mommy loved it there. She said it made her feel free. Michael turned onto a narrow road that curved gently alongside a shallow stream. The trees here leaned in close, their branches whispering secrets to one another. As they drove deeper, they reached a clearing, grassy and still, with an old wooden bench sitting beneath a willow tree. A bridge crossed the creek ahead, and beyond it, a small cabin sat tucked between the trees. That's it, Lily whispered. That's the cabin. Michael parked the car and looked back at her. Are you ready? She nodded. I want to see her. Eva clutched Lily's hand as they got out, her small steps uncertain but trusting. Michael walked behind them, heart pounding, unsure of what they were about to walk into. As they crossed the bridge, a woman stepped out onto the porch of the cabin. She wore a loose sweater and jeans, her dark hair pulled back. She looked older, thinner than he remembered. But her eyes were the same. Wide, intelligent, endlessly sad. Sophia. She froze when she saw them. Lily didn't hesitate. She let go of Ava's hand and ran forward. Mom. Sophia's hands flew to her mouth. Her knees buckled slightly as Lily threw her arms around her. Oh my God, she choked. My baby. Ava rushed next, burying her face into Sophia's side. And for a long time, There was nothing but the sound of the wind through the trees and the quiet sobbing of a mother who had thought she'd lost everything. Michael stood at a distance, giving them space. His chest tightened as he watched them. Something about the way Sophia clung to the girls like they were lifelines, like she was afraid they'd vanish again. Eventually, her gaze shifted to him. Her eyes narrowed slightly, wary, uncertain, but she didn't speak. He took a step forward. "I didn't come to judge or accuse. I came because they needed you. And I think maybe you needed them too." Sophia's jaw clenched. "How did you find me?" Lily remembered. She held on to that memory like it was her map. Sophia glanced down at her daughters. "I didn't want to leave them. I had no choice." Michael nodded slowly. "Then help me understand." She gestured for them all to come inside. The cabin was small but warm. A fire crackled in the hearth. Books lined the shelves. A blanket draped across a worn couch. It didn't feel like a hideout. It felt like a refuge. A quiet sanctuary built out of necessity and fear. As the girls settled on the floor with a small box of crayons and paper, Sophia poured tea and sat across from Michael. "You want the truth?" she asked. "I think we both deserve it." She took a breath. "After the girls were born, I tried to live a normal life. But I got involved with the wrong person. Someone who seemed charming at first, generous, attentive. Then he changed, became possessive, violent. And when I tried to leave, he threatened to take the girls." Michael listened, jaw tightening. "Did you go to the police?" She nodded. "But he had money, influence, and I didn't have the resources to fight him. So I ran. We stayed in shelters, crashed with friends. I kept moving. I thought I could stay ahead of him." Michael exhaled slowly. "And the grave, the one I found them at?" "That was my sister," she said quietly. "She passed 2 months ago. The girls called her Aunt Rachel. She was the only one who helped us. When she died, I panicked. I didn't know what else to do. I left them with a trusted contact and went to find help. When I came back, they were gone." Michael rubbed a hand across his face. That contact was careless or scared. He abandoned them. "I didn't mean for it to happen like that," she whispered, eyes brimming. "I was trying to protect them, but I failed." Michael's voice was low. "No, you didn't fail. You did what you could with what you had." She looked up, surprised. "I know what it's like to lose someone," he said, "and then live every day like you're paying penance for it. But we have a chance here, all of us." Sophia's eyes studied his face. "Why are you really here, Michael? You're a CEO, a millionaire, a man who once walked away from everything because it got too hard." He didn't flinch. "Because I've changed. The moment I saw those girls crying at the grave, something inside me shifted. They needed someone. And I realized I did too." She looked away, her hands trembling slightly. "And what now? You think you can fix this with money? A bigger house? Security?" "No," he said gently. "With love. With time. With showing up. Every single day." The silence between them stretched. But it wasn't empty. It was full of everything unsaid, everything felt. Sophia glanced at the girls, then back at Michael. "They trust you. I didn't ask for that, but I'll never betray it." Her voice cracked. "I don't know if I can stay. I don't even know who I am anymore." "You're their mother," he said firmly. "That's enough." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded. They stayed the night in the cabin. The girls slept curled up on either side of Sophia, peaceful for the first time in weeks. Michael sat outside on the porch, staring up at the stars. The air was cold, but he didn't mind. Something deep inside him had settled. In the morning, they would talk more. About next steps. About safety. About healing. Maybe even about rebuilding something real between the four of them. But for now, he let the quiet hold him. Because this was more than just a reunion. It was a beginning. And for the first time in years, he felt whole. Not because he'd solved a problem or made a deal, but because he'd opened his heart, and it had led him home.